When it comes time to pick a wide receiver in your fantasy football draft, you got a lot of choices, but will you make the right one? We're going to give you an early look at the wide receivers that we feel comfortable, the only receivers that you should be drafting in 2024. If you're ready to start drafting right now, you actually don't have to wait. Get on Underdog and do a best ball draft. They have tournaments open right now where you can draft and take advantage of those pre-NFL draft values on rookies, free agents, and more. Get in there right now. You can download the Underdog Fantasy app or click on the link in the description. Just make sure if you're signing up for the very first time on Underdog, use promo code NGAME because that gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. All right, let's go through each round and talk about the wide receivers that are being drafted using Underdog ADP. That's where the real drafters are getting their action right now, those best ball drafts. And in round one, no surprise, a lot of receivers being taken, but the new number one receiver is CeeDee Lamb, followed by Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and then you still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, and A.J. Brown. Now, you can only take one first-round pick, but which one or which of these receivers would be the one you're targeting?
Well, I'm targeting all of them except A.J. Brown, quite honestly. I'm happy with any of these wide receivers as my wide receiver one. I know there's going to be some people that are going to be a bit worried about Justin Jefferson without Kirk Cousins. I'm not worried. He was awesome last year with Nick Mullins. I think he'll be great, whoever it is. And I know there's going to be some people who probably feel like, hey, Puka Nacua already a round one wide receiver. I'm willing to do it. I think he's going to be the guy this year. He's going to be the number one guy there. Matt Stafford coming back. I'm okay with Puka. The reason why I'm not okay with A.J. Brown, and it's not that I don't like A.J. Brown, I just think we kind of know who A.J. Brown is at this point. Yes, there's going to be some weeks where he has a handful of games where he's really, really good. And then he has some other games where he's, good. And then he has some games where he's not so good. And I feel like I can get that kind of production in round 2 or round 3. So I feel like A.J. Brown still going in the first round just seems a little early for me. So I like all of them except A.J. Brown.
Well, I actually agree with you on the A.J. Brown thing. I don't know if he has quite the upside of those other receivers that we talked about anymore, and injuries do happen. Working backwards, I'll say I still am trying to wrap my head around Puka as a first-round pick, and I'm getting there. But I will just say that I'm actually taking running backs towards the turn here, pick 10, 11, if they drop over Puka sometimes. If I do have a top 5 pick, CeeDee Lamb's my number 1, Tyreek Hill's my number 2, Justin Jefferson's my number 3. Jamar Chase makes me a little nervous because he and Joe Burrow can't ever seem to stay healthy for an entire season. And now a new offensive coordinator. I'm not worried about Jamar Chase, but I'll just say he's not my top choice. In round 2, 7 more receivers are going off the board. We got Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison Jr. before he's been drafted, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, Brandon Ayuk, and Drake London. A lot of young, upcoming receivers in this tier. Who are you comfortable with?
The one I'm most comfortable with is Garrett Wilson. I will happily take Garrett Wilson early in the second round. Like you said, I will happily go if I have a late, first round pick or picking at the turn. I will happily pass on A.J. Brown, grab one of those running backs, and then grab Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1. I think he'll be just as good or better than A.J. Brown this year. I also do like Nico Collins and DJ Moore, but only if they fall to the end of the second, which they really don't. DJ Moore has started to now that they signed Keenan. But drafting these guys early second just feels too early for me. And then I'll say I'm fine with Harrison, Drake London, and Brandon Ayuk here. I think these guys are going to be great. Totally fine with them. The one guy I'm not drafting, though, in this round is Devontae Adams. He wasn't even that great last year. We still don't know who the quarterback is. And we're just drafting him in the same exact spot he was drafted last year. Like, he hasn't fallen at all. Why? I am not taking Devontae Adams in the middle of the second.
Well, if you've seen some of our mock drafts, we do live mocks still every single week. I have talked about how now that some of these free agent moves have been made, I really struggle with which receiver I feel good about in the early to mid second round. If we're talking the end of the second round near the turn, okay, I'm pretty much good with most of these players. The only one I would say I'm really not taking, honestly, is Nico Collins, just because I feel it's too soon. If I can get Tank Dell in round 3, I'd rather do that. But I don't really know who I feel belongs at the beginning of round 2. If Garrett Wilson's there, I'm taking him. Otherwise, I guess Drake London is the one I would take. It used to be DJ Moore that was automatic. The Keenan Allen thing kind of killed that. Now, I do still feel like DJ Moore is a solid early third round pick, but right now, out of this group, really, it's Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and then I'm not sure I feel great about any of these guys in round 2 right now. The third round is practically full of receivers. Here are the choices: Stephon Diggs, Rashee Rice still, Deebo Samuel, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, and Malik Neighbors. All right, out of those receivers, who you like, who you don't like?
I'll say the guys I will absolutely no doubt draft in this round are Chris Olave, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Waddle, and Malik Neighbors at the end. If those guys are there in the third round when it's my pick, I will happily draft one of them. I'll then say I will draft Deebo Samuel towards the later end of the third round. I don't want to draft him early in the third, but if he makes it later in the third, I'll draft him. Now, when we look at the other guys, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, I am not touching these guys in the third round. Look, maybe I'm going to be wrong about Stephon Diggs. Maybe he's going to bounce back and be elite again. But after what I saw for most of the season last year, I'm pretty much out on him in the third round. And DK Metcalf, why is he still going in the third round? He wasn't even that good last year, and nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse because the new head coach is more of a run-first head coach than even Pete Carroll was. Tyler Lockett is still there. JSN going in year 2. I don't understand DK Metcalf still going in the third. Then the other one, the final one, is Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice will be fine. But when I can get the other Chiefs wide receiver like 4 rounds later, who we're going to talk about, I'm probably just going to pass on Rashee Rice.
I didn't understand Rashee Rice going into the third round before they got Hollywood Brown. And now I understand even less why he hasn't dropped a lot more. I don't think he will because everyone just sees Chiefs number 1 receiver, must have. I mean, he still will be fine, but he doesn't need to be a third round pick. So I'm not taking him. And yeah, I'm off of Diggs too. Look, there's a point where I will draft him, but this isn't it. You have to just acknowledge that he may not be an elite receiver for fantasy anymore. Okay, so who do I like in round 3? If I'm going receiver, my number 1 choice here is still Chris Olave. Sure, maybe first round, early second round was too aggressive last year, but now you don't have to pay that price. So I like Olave, I like Tank Dell, and I like Michael Pittman Jr. Those are the ones I feel best about. And then Jalen Waddle, we have to acknowledge that even though he didn't miss a lot of actual game time, he was struggling through injuries for a lot of last season. He still has another gear. He's still super young. It's still a dynamic offense. So I like Waddle if I can get him toward the end of round 3. Mike Evans continues to be undervalued, so fine with him here. And I feel like he doesn't really go this early in a lot of the drafts we do. But DK Metcalf, no way. And then Malik Neighbors, I'm going to kind of tentatively say I'm okay taking him here, but really I prefer round 4. Now, round 4 is where a lot of the veterans can be found, some of the former elite, and that includes Cooper Kupp. Got Devontae Smith here, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, and Zay Flowers sneaks into round 4, just barely. All right, you like all of these players in this range, or do you feel like some of them are being drafted too soon still?
I do feel like some are being drafted too soon. I'll say the 2 I really like are Devonta Smith and Zay Flowers. They're my 2 favorites in this range. Like I said with A.J. Brown, why spend a first-round pick on A.J. Brown when you can get Devonta Smith in the 4th round? I know Devonta Smith, can be kind of up and down, but so can A.J. Brown. He has just as high of a ceiling as A.J. Brown, and you're getting him 3 rounds later. And I think Zay Flowers is going to assert himself as the clear alpha in this offense in year 2. And T. Higgins, I feel like people are, kind of down on him a little too much because he had a bad season last year. I think he'll still be in Cincy. I think he'll still be great. I like T. Higgins here. And then Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper, I'm just not doing it in this round. Keenan Allen's going to get a big downgrade going to Chicago with a rookie quarterback where he's not going to get peppered with targets. And look, Amari Cooper didn't really start going off until it was Joe Flacco. So who knows what we're going to get from Deshaun Watson and these quarterbacks. I liked Amari Cooper last year. He came through thanks to Flacco. I'm not liking him so much here this year.
Well, I'll just say I must be drafting Devontae Smith too early. I've taken him as early as the 2nd round in some of those mocks because I feel like I'm not quite sold on all of those other receivers. I think he belongs at least a round higher than this. So if he's sitting there in round 4, I'm definitely pulling the trigger. And honestly, the next guy I feel best about is Zay Flowers. Still got some upside here, room to grow. He was great as a rookie. I think he can be even better. I'm just not going to take Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, not just because of the age, but also there's been some injuries. You talk about Keenan Allen, his situation is not going to be better for fantasy. And then T. Higgins, just a lot of uncertainty. Honestly, he's been banged up a lot too. It's not just, well, will he get traded? Will he not? I don't feel like he's ever put together consistently a great season. And he's at the best, going to be still in Cincinnati, which means best case, he's still the number 2 receiver on that team. So I'd rather go elsewhere. On to round 5, and we see Rome Odunze, the rookie, at the top here. George Pickens is next, Jaden Reed, Christian Kirk, and Terry McLaurin. This is an interesting group. Which way are you leaning?
I'm leaning Odunze, Christian Kirk, and Terry McLaurin. Why is Odunze going this much lower than Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors? He's every bit the prospect of those guys. He might even be a better prospect than Neighbors. I think he is. And he's going this much later. I will happily take Odunze here. I also love Christian Kirk. I loved him before Calvin Ridley decided to go join the Titans. I love him even more now with Ridley out of there. He should be an absolute target monster in this offense. And the Commanders are almost certainly going to go QB at 2, which I think will be a big bump for Terry McLaurin. Maybe we finally can see the Terry McLaurin we've all wanted to see. I'm still not doing it with George Pickens this early with, either Russ or Justin Fields. I mean, I guess it's okay. And I guess Deontay Johnson is gone. That helps him. But I don't know. I can't do it this early. Maybe I'm going to miss on him. And as much as I like Jaden Reed, I worry that we saw pretty much like the best of Jaden Reed last year because there's still a lot of mouths to feed here. I don't know if he can sustain that kind of production throughout an entire season. So I just feel like this is too early for Jaden Reed.
Well, let me start with my favorite pick here, that if I had to choose just one receiver from this group, is Christian Kirk. I mean, he's clearly still the number 1 guy in Jacksonville, and with Calvin Ridley gone, he's very clearly the number 1 guy there. I will agree that Jaden Reed is just going too soon. Loved him last year, but now that everybody loves him, I love his draft price a little less. So it's too soon for me. And this is an offense that's going to diversify. They have other weapons. He's not like a target hog or anything like that. I'm actually still in on George Pickens. And I know this isn't just a I can't quit him kind of thing. I mean, you think about it, no matter who the quarterback is at Pittsburgh, it's an upgrade from last year, just automatically. So I wish he was going a little bit later, but I still like him among this group. And then I'm still in on Odunze. So Terry McLaurin, yeah, it matters who his quarterback is. But again, is it going to be an upgrade from last year? Probably so. Round 6, a pretty young group here. You can choose from Calvin Ridley, Jordan Addison, Brian Thomas Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, Chris Godwin. Which way do you go here?
Honestly, I don't like any of these wide receivers in the 6th round. If for some reason I get to this round and maybe I started, double hero RB, maybe I grabbed an early QB or tight end, and I only have, a couple wide receivers at this point, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm getting desperate at wide receiver, then I'll go with Calvin Ridley and hope that this is an offense that throws the ball more and that Will Levis, makes enough of a year 2 leap to support Calvin Ridley. But really, I just find myself passing on wide receivers here all the time in these drafts. And I like the running backs that are going here. So really, none of them.
I pretty much agree with you. Jordan Addison will be a great receiver in the league, but it's either Sam Darnold or a rookie quarterback who isn't going to be Caleb Williams. I just don't see the volume being supported, not in round 6. Calvin Ridley, we can't say he'll put up better numbers in Tennessee's offense. Yeah, I know it's a different Tennessee offense, but come on. Are they really going to pass the ball more than Jacksonville did last year? Brian Thomas really depends on landing spot, and then Chris Godwin's just going to be second fiddle in Baker Mayfield's eyes. So if I have to pull a trigger on a receiver here, actually I like JSN the best. I do think, even though Tyler Lockett is still there, that JSN will take on a bigger role, but I really don't feel like I have to go with any of these receivers here. Now we're in round 7. You can choose from Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, or Christian Watson. Do any of those catch your eye?
Yeah, there's 2 guys I absolutely love here, and that's Marquise Brown and Deontay Johnson. Talked about it a little bit with Rashee Rice. Why draft Rashee Rice in the 3rd when you can just get Marquise Brown in the 7th? This is like almost no risk. Even if Marquise Brown isn't any good or, is battling injury, it's in the 7th round. Like, you need Rashee Rice to be great in the 3rd round. And then I love Deontay Johnson. I think people are way too low on Deontay Johnson because it's the Panthers. It wasn't a good offense last year, but he's going to get all the targets here. I think Bryce Young can at least be good enough to support him. So those are the 2 guys I like. And really, Hopkins, Christian Watson, not really doing it.
Well, I'm just going to echo what you said. Exactly the same. I like those 2 guys. Hollywood still being undervalued. I know last year was disappointing, mainly because of injury. And let's face it, that could happen to any player. It's not like he has a history of serious injuries. It's not like he tore his ACL. And he's going to Kansas City. Again, I'm shocked his ADP didn't shoot up as soon as he signed, and Rashee Rice's didn't kind of meet with him in the middle. So he still looks like a great value. Christian Watson, are we really doing this still? No thanks. I'll pass. I'll take another Packers receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, he's just is what he is. I don't see how Calvin Ridley being there is going to help him in any way. Still too soon, but I'm all over Deontay Johnson. Definitely a good value. I'm worried that his price is also going to start to go up, but for now, still looks like a steal. And then before you get to the top 100, there's 2 more receivers in round 8. You're looking at Romeo Doubs or Jameson Williams. Would you pull the trigger on either of those?
No desire for either of these guys. I mean, maybe Jameson Williams has some crazy breakout, but when you look at his, numbers as far as like how often he's targeted and things like that, just really does not scream breakout for Jameson Williams. Not touching either of these guys.
I'd say what I just said about the Packers receivers. We've already talked about 3 of them, and there's still another that could be possibly drafted. I don't see why we have to take Romeo Doubs this soon, and I'm probably not doing it other than to maybe like diversify my best ball portfolio. And then Jameson Williams, still not in on him. I feel like he's going to be the next Jerry Jeudy, meaning a guy who's shown at Alabama and got a lot of hype and just really has done nothing in the NFL to deserve it. Now, obviously, after pick 100, you still have a ton of options, but there are probably only a few guys you really trust. So give me a couple of names of players that you find yourself going to over and over again.
I find myself drafting Josh Downs over and over again. I feel like he's been forgotten because he didn't have a good end of the season last year and Michael Pittman was so good. But remember, in the middle of the season, he was tearing it up, and then he had that injury that set him back, and he just wasn't the same after that. Year 2 with Anthony Richardson, I think he's going to be great. I also find myself drafting Josh Palmer a ton. I don't understand why nobody wants this guy. 2 years in a row, he's been, good in fantasy. I get it. He's not like a league winner or anything. But outside the top 100, Mike Williams is gone. Keenan Allen is gone. Even if they draft a wide receiver, they're still going to need Josh Palmer. So I think Josh Palmer is a great value. And then I have talked a lot about Demario Douglas. He's been completely forgotten in drafts. He's almost going outside the top 200 picks. The Patriots are almost certainly going to have a new QB, and they haven't really done anything at wide receiver to scare me off of Demario Douglas for his targets. So I still love Demario Douglas.
All right, well, ask the question, why would I take Jaden Reed in round 5 or Christian Watson in round 7 when I can wait till after pick 120 and take Dontavian Wicks? Now, down the stretch, Dontavian Wicks really started to come on as he saw the field more. And he saw the field more because Christian Watson is always hurt. Yes, that is going to continue to be a thing. But even so, Dontavian Wicks showed that he can be involved in this offense. Of course, Jordan Love, this whole offense took off. Wicks in his last 4 games, 16 catches, 270 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And that's important. He had a role in the red zone. And he also showed some athleticism that maybe people didn't expect because he didn't get drafted as high as those other players. So I like his upside. A guy that I kind of can't believe I keep going back to, but for some reason, I can't quit Wan'Dale Robinson. And I try to quit the Giants offense altogether. Like we keep saying, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I honestly have no clue who the Giants are going to have at quarterback. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is he even going to be healthy? Is that a good thing? Well, I will say this also. It really can't get worse, can it? Last year for the Giants at quarterback, Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, they've got to do something, right? But even with that, Wan'Dale Robinson had himself a few nice games. He was the leading receiver, believe it or not, for the Giants on the season. And they've got enough other needs to address. I think he can still do it again. And the last guy I'm going to take a shot on is Marvin Mims. Jerry Jeudy's gone. I feel like this is also a team that needs to do something. Marvin Mims may not be the number 1 or 2 receiver there, but he's got that home run potential I'd rather take a chance on. Those are the receivers we feel comfortable drafting, and these are the only running backs we feel good about this year.